Hi, welcome to City Scene with Mayor Mike Cahill. I'm your host, Walt Kosmowski. And Mike, welcome.
Thank you, Walt. Good to see you.
Good to see you again. And I would like to remind our viewers out there that City Scene is a program, the purpose of which is to bring our citizens and viewers up to date on the various projects and initiatives which are happening around the city of Beverly. And of course, who better to do that with than the mayor of the city? There's something I think that we need to get to, Mike, that's the front article in the paper this morning, the Folger Avenue fire. There's a lot happening, impact on the community. Can you kind of bring us up to date on that, Mike?
Sure. Well, we're filming here on Friday morning, the 18th. We already did July 18th?
Something, yeah, it is the 18th.
And last Sunday night there was the fire in Folger Ave. A couple things. First, I just have to say, I don't think it can be said enough that our first responders, our police, our firefighters, were just tremendous. That fire had the potential to be far more than it was. It was significant. You know, the $2 million damage. I think they said eight buildings, right. eight homes were damaged. The two that were under construction burned down to the ground. The fire was immense. The danger to residents, the potential for loss of life and for much greater property damage was incredible. And the police who were first on the scene, running from door to door in the middle of the fire with the flaming embers really kind of raining down through the neighborhood and getting people out of their homes. The firefighters getting there quickly, getting set up and fighting the blazes. And eventually there were 3 trucks all fighting the fire at the same time. People were tremendous. It was our Beverly and Beverly Police and Fire, and it was also firefighters from several other communities who responded under mutual aid. I'll say the neighbors were fantastic. There's obviously going to be a real, everybody needs to see what's happening, and there were several hundred neighbors out there, but they were very cooperative and helpful to the police and the firefighters in making sure that our public safety folks were able to fight the fire and keep everybody safely away from it. So that's the first. The second is that the State Fire Marshal's Office, the state police, and our police and fire investigators have done a tremendous job over the last several days in very quickly investigating and getting to the bottom of it. And you saw yesterday that there were 3 individuals arrested, right. and one arrested and arraigned, and 2 summonsed who will be arraigned. Right. So that now the criminal justice process is underway. And hopefully that will come to a quick and successful conclusion. Yeah. I met this morning with some of the Folger Ave neighbors to talk about some of their, in the wake of this, some of their concerns around public safety in the neighborhood and some of the needs they have as a neighborhood, having undergone this fire. But it's been a hard week, but the professionalism and courageous actions of our first responders have been tremendous. Yeah.
Well, thank you for bringing us up to date on that, Mike. And as long as we're talking about the Ryleside neighborhood, we've heard that the Green Hill Reservation area is something that you're looking at to open up for more recreational use. Can you tell us a little bit about what your vision for that might be?
Sure. And what I'll tell you what's happened recently. Now, Green Hill was purchased by the city some 14, 15 years ago. I was the state representative at the time and was able to get state grant money for that property to be preserved. We always envisioned it to be a property that the public utilized very regularly and heavily. It's got walking paths up there, but what's happened is over time everything's gotten overgrown, and it's not really that accessible and usable. So what we're looking to do is, and what we've started is right at the edge of the elementary school property. Our DPW has started to cut back the brush, yeah. And there's a lot of sumac that's kind of overgrown there, and it's kind of infringed on the playground. Further in, we want to widen out and open up the main path and a couple of tributary paths off of it. And then there's a walkway down to the riverfront that the school uses for the kids to go down and do science classes at the riverbank. Oh, okay. And that's a little bit washed out. We want to improve upon that, maybe build some steps into it. We'll be appearing before the Conservation Commission this coming week to share plans with them. There are a couple of things that will be happening close enough to the riverbanks that we'll need the Conservation Commission to determine whether they need to have more involvement or whether they can sign off on what we're trying to do. And for the most part, it's cleaning up the underbrush, opening up sight lines, widening the main path, eventually putting stone dust down. I want it to be a property and a resource that the whole neighborhood and the community
Sure.
at large will use to walk dogs, to walk children, to jog, to pedal a bike through, whatever, but to be out there on a regular daily basis. To have a property like that, people need to feel safe using it, and so opening it up for better sight lines is one thing, but getting the community in there on a regular basis, the more something is utilized,
Sure.
the more it becomes culturally part of the community, and it will be a safe resource day and evening to use.
Right, and certainly this goes to quality of life issues for the citizens of the city. As long as you mentioned property that the city has bought or is buying, Camp Paradise. It was announced a couple months ago that the city was buying. Has that gone through? I know that you were looking for CPA funding money to subsidize that. Tell us where that stands now.
Yes. Camp Paradise, for anybody who doesn't know where it is, it's you can get there from Cole Street in Centerville or from Stanley Street and Foster Street.
That's how I get there.
Right. That's right. You're right up the street. So if you're on Essex Street by the YMCA, by the Essex Park Nursing Home, it's a bit past there. You go down Cole Street. We used to know it as Girl Scout Pond. I used to skate there, play hockey there growing up. But it's Camp Paradise. It's about 12 acres. The Girl Scouts are selling it. We have reached an agreement in principle with the Girl Scouts and are working on the details of an option to purchase contract. It's pending a couple of things. We've made application for a state grant that would be in the amount of $400,000, perhaps more, and we're waiting to hear on that. We'll hear on that in the early fall. We've approached our Community Preservation Committee locally to apply for community preservation funds to help match. The sale price will be $950,000. We went back and forth. We appraised the property. The Girl Scouts appraised it. We got a third party in, an independent appraisal, a peer review appraisal, and this is the number that was reached as a fair price. So about half the money would come from community preservation funds, and the Community Preservation Committee has sent a letter to the state saying that they are willing to fund us in that amount, and that's in support of our grant application to the state. So that's where things stand right now. We also have reached an agreement with the Girl Scouts in the meantime to rent the property through the summer months. I think we're looking at June, July, August, September, where the rec department will be running some programs and is running some programs over there. That's a kind of a measure of good faith. We're interested in getting on the property and getting to know it, and that helps kind of push things out because we can't close on it until we get the state grant and the council approves the city council will need to approve the Community Preservation Committee's recommendation of CPA funds. So it's as I said, it's an agreement in principle with the Girl Scouts. We're ironing out the details of an option to purchase, and that'll have those conditions. We need to get the state funds. We need to get the local CPA funds. And at that point, when that comes to pass, hopefully it will, we'll then be able to close on the property hopefully before the end of the calendar year.
Okay. Now, the usage of that will be similar to what they're using now, summer camp, kids going to use it on a daily or weekly basis. Is that what you're looking at?
We envision our recreation department will manage it, and we envision the schools utilizing it for outdoor education opportunities during the school year, the rec department using it heavily in the summer, but also it can really be a four-season resource. And they have a wonderful building on the property that Girl Scouts built some years ago that really can serve the purpose of indoor space for any type of program that the rec department might run, or for a lesson. Could even do sleepovers there if there's a group that wants to do something like that. And then obviously the Girl Scouts have used it that way for many years. It's a great resource, and I'm excited and hopeful that it'll come to pass.
And the condition of the buildings on the property, a lot of maintenance required, or are they pretty much good to go as they are?
There's really the one main building that is reasonably new and in very good shape.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Let's change gears a little bit right now, and let's talk about the the new middle school on Cabot Street. Can you kind of bring us up to date on where that project stands, Mike?
Absolutely. We have been working with the Mass School Building Authority very regularly. When I first took office in January, one of the first things that I learned when meeting with MSBA a couple weeks into my term is that there is no way that they believed that we could be in the new school by September of 2017. And that was a target date that had been used prior to my taking office as the goal. And so the MSBA looked at that and they said that's just not possible. Here are the 5 different phases of this building project that you need to undertake, and here are the best case scenarios and how much time it'll take. And when we added up the best case scenarios, it brought us to December of 2018.
Wow.
So we immediately started pushing back and saying we need to be in the Briscoe Middle School until the new middle school's ready, but we can't delay at all. So we pushed back. They put us in touch with some school districts who've beaten deadlines in their middle school projects. We visited with them, met with them, took some of their lessons learned, and we recalibrated the timetable. Now what we're targeting is a hoped-for completion date of the new school by spring of 2018.
Okay.
So originally, the city had been looking at September 2017. The state told me when I first took office December 2018, so that's about a 16 month later. We're pushing back to as early in the calendar year of 2018 as possible with a thought that late spring can work. Our goal right now is that we finish the school in a time frame that allows all of our teachers and administrators to move into it at the end of that 2017-18 school year. As the school year ends, our middle school can move into the new building right at the end of that school year, allowing our elementary schools to prepare for having additional space freed up,
right?
So that we can have an orderly beginning to the September 2018 beginning to that school year. So we'll need to get one additional year out of Briscoe than people had thought prior to this year, which means that we have, what do we need, 4 more years in Briscoe? Right? We're in 2014, 14, 15, so 4 more years in Briscoe starting this September. And I'll tell you, everything I've seen, I've been in Briscoe several times, I've sat in on classes, I've heard from parents and students and teachers. There's great learning that goes on in that building. We have a tremendous staff. There's a lot of creativity. They are making the very best of the physical resource that they have, and we'll make sure that that Briscoe gets the needed upkeep and that they have what they need between now and the time the new school opens. Right now, we're in the process of selecting a designer or architect, both terms used, a designer architect for the building. When that is complete, we need to meet twice at MSBA, August 12th and August 26th. We've gone out to bid on the designer. We'll work with MSBA to select our designer during those 2 August meetings. We'll have the person on board by the end of the summer. We had hired our owner's project manager earlier this spring. Now by hiring the designer, we'll be ready with the state in early September to kick off the feasibility study. Now during that feasibility study period, we need to first look at Briscoe because that's where the kids are today and determine whether or not it's appropriate. We don't believe it is. We think the MSBA folks understand, having toured it, that they understand it's not a facility that will work for the new middle school. Then we'll turn our attention to Memorial, and the feasibility study means we look at the existing Memorial building and determine, is a renovation and add-on type of project appropriate, or do we need to knock down, build anew, or is there some combination? In the case of the high school, you know, the cafeteria, the fine arts wing, auditorium, and the field house were kept and renovated, and everything else was built anew.
Right. So for the new Cabot, the Memorial new middle school, so the options are still open there. We're still not sure exactly how the case will unfold.
Correct, and that's what the feasibility study is designed to figure out. You know, this is all about. This is all about taking stock of our available resources. Briscoe and Memorial both are there, determining what if any of it is appropriate for future use, and then deciding what needs to be built, because we're spending taxpayer dollars. So the school building authority is a watchdog of the state tax dollar, and we obviously are a watchdog of the local tax dollar. So this process, it takes some time, but it's designed to make sure that we build in the right way, and then there'll be a lot of conversation, discussion, and debate about how to right size the building. We need to build it large enough, but not too large. We need to right size it for the projected population and the needs that the kids will have.
Sure. And speaking of watchdog, let me change gears a little bit here. Certainly a project that has gotten a lot of public scrutiny. It's been the Brimble Avenue Overchange project. And the last time we sat here and talked, Mass DOT had said that it was not in favor of building the connector on the old section that used to be the landfill, but rather in the same footprint as the current connector.
Right.
Where do we stand on that, Mike?
Yesterday we met with our engineer, as well as with the folks from the CEA group who are looking to build a retail plaza on Brimble Ave. So a couple things. The state did say back in May that we needed to build in place. The state already owns and controls that property, so it's easier. They weren't comfortable with building and then owning a road on the former landfill. So we've worked through the 25% design stage, and we are holding a public meeting next week. Let me get this right. This is next Thursday, July 24th at 6:30 p.m. at the Senior Center.
Okay.
We'll be holding a public meeting where we want people to come and hear about the project, and the focus next Thursday will be specifically on the road, the construction of the road, not on any development or business, but on the road. It'll be on looking at the plans and where they are. We're on track to complete the design and get all the necessary state approvals by the end of September. So this is the time for this 25% meeting. The public can share, they can ask their questions and share any suggestions or concerns, try to make sure that that's all incorporated. And there's been a good amount of conversation, so we hope that a lot of what people have been asking about and concerned with, they'll see reflected in the design as it stands now. But that'll be next Thursday. We meet regularly with the North Beverly Neighborhood Group.
Sure.
That's something that the council put together, and Ward 5 Councilor Don Martin has been heading up. We'll be meeting with them in the near future with the CEA group to talk about their proposed plans for their parcel. If you remember, they own a parcel of land on Brimble, and they were going to swap that land with the state.
Right.
Now that the land swap is not happening, they still want to develop the land that they already own.
Sure, of course.
And they are planning to bring a proposal for a retail plaza forward to the planning board this fall. They'll need to get planning board approval if they'll to be able to build. They're looking for a retail plaza. It will I think it will likely include a Whole Foods in their proposal. I know that has been hotly debated. But I know that they've been working with Whole Foods, and Whole Foods is still interested in Beverly, and the CEA group is still interested in them coming to that site. So that'll be something that goes through the planning board process this fall. It's separate from the building of the road, but obviously people put them together in their minds, so it's worth noting that as well.
Yeah. And in keeping with having open meetings, which you are committed to do, a couple weeks ago, you had an open public meeting at the Beverly Council on Aging that had to do with the state of the roads and what's the city doing to fix roads and get roads up to condition. And I know Mike Collins made a very nice presentation there, and BevCam covered it. Can you kind of bring us up to date on where we stand with the short and longer range term plans for the city streets and roads?
Sure, and thank you folks for covering that. We presented that night the fact that we're working on a couple of major water infrastructure projects this year, a major sewer infrastructure project, and those are funded out of the water fund and the sewer fund, the enterprise funds, and we received approval from the city council to bond for those projects. The water projects are a big water main project through Centerville, down Hull Street, and then into the farms along Grapevine Road and Hart Street, because that's needed to improve water pressure for firefighting in the farms, and also water quality for people's use in their homes. That will be a a cement lining of the existing water main. The water main's in good enough shape that what you do is you dig into the road at certain intervals, and then there's a robotic operated kind of camera utilized kind of a spray painter that paints on cement coating to the inside of the pipe. First, they'll clean out the pipe because it's been kind of gummed up over the years. They'll clean it out, and that'll kind of increase its capacity, and then they'll cement line it, which should ensure its ability to be used for many years to come.
And so they do that every so often, every like 100 yards or 50 yards?
I don't have the number, but it's as needed. So they'll be kind of digging into the street at intervals of, like 6 to 8 feet trenches. And then they'll fill those in and temporarily pave them. And when the whole project's done, we'll be repaving the length of all that. Then in the cove, there's a sewer project down Corning Street and kind of throughout the cove. All of our sanitary sewer lines from throughout the city, they come from different places throughout the city, and they all come together at the end of Water Street, which is near Jubilee Yacht Club, Tux Point condos down there. And they feed into a main line that then pipes over to the sewage treatment plant in Salem. So this is the Cove project, and the goal is to reduce infiltration and inflow. That's water from storm drains, water from sump pumps that illegally is dumped into.
Interesting.
And it's to make sure that that water doesn't get into the sanitary sewage flow, because we pay money for all of that flow that goes over into SESD. So that's another big project. The paving, we've got about 140 miles of road in the city, and we're spending just about $3 million to pave 4.5 miles of it.
Wow.
It's a bit daunting because we're paving 14 roads this year. We want to pave more, but the costs associated with addressing ADA needs, Americans with Disability Act needs, because we have to do sidewalks and crossings all properly, and making sure that we do the drainage right off of these roads and pave them properly. There's a cost to each mile that you pave. So we're doing 14 roads this year. We have we want to do as much as we can in each of the coming years. We were able to do it this year without bonding. We're able to put significant additional city money to it, partly or in large part because we realized the savings in our health care costs this year. So we were able to put about $600,000 additional beyond what we were already spending directly to this as a one-time use of funds. Now, there's a lot to it. Anyway.
Now, if my math is correct, you mentioned 4 miles and $3 million. That's roughly $750,000 per mile. Okay.
I'm not going to check your math.
Well, assuming it is. Now, does that scale? You mentioned there's 140,000. 140 miles
roughly.
So would that scale, that 750 per mile? Would that scale, or are those roads? It's different depending upon if there's sewers there. Or
every section of road is different for sure. I guess the best thing to say is if you took those numbers and extrapolate them out, if we spent $3 million a year, we could do our roads. I think it's about 30 years to do them all. Roadways don't tend to last 30 years if they're heavily used enough. So we're just chipping away as best we can. We will look to do another $3 million each of the next couple of years, if at all possible. There are a lot of roads in the city that need attention, and if you maintain your roads so that they don't deteriorate past a certain point, they can last longer as well. So we're not spending money just on repaving. We also are doing, in the fall, we'll do some seal cracking work, if that's the right term. People know what that is. You see the squiggly
we know those.
Rubbery black lines. You can do some of that kind of work that can preserve roads longer. When the utility companies dig up roads and they then fill in with these trenches, if you see these narrow kind of 2 to 3 foot trenches that have been repaved, that's not what we want. And what Mike Collins and his Department of Public Services, have done very well in recent years is they've worked with the utilities and they've gotten a different system in place where they will go back and they will take a 6 foot wide trench and they will grind it and inlay it so that when they finish over the work they're doing under the street, it's done in such a way that that road can last for another 10 years. So you see that around town. Things are improving every year along those lines. A lot of great work is being done to try to maintain our roads, preserve them for longer life, and the ones that really need it, try to get to them as we go and repave them.
Interesting. Thank you for that, Mike.
Sure.
Now let's talk a little bit about downtown itself. And the first question I'm going to feed you. It's hot, around town right now.
Mm-hmm.
Supposedly there's been an offer on the Cabot Theater and it's been accepted. Is there anything? Can you tell us anything about that?
Sure. Very quickly, the Cabot, there is a local group that has been able to, as I understand, sign a purchase and sales agreement. That's where I understand things are at. I don't know if they've gone further. But the plan there is to preserve it as a live performing arts venue and a cinema and kind of a cultural center and resource, which is just what we need for the long haul out of that facility. We can't lose that. I think the arts and cultural component of our downtown is growing and is something we can more and more market as a community. To have several venues for live performance, to have the visual arts component of our economy downtown. There's a lot there to gain. Staying downtown but moving down to the waterfront, we have recently begun the process of trying to get our designated port area removed by the state. Yeah. In conjunction with that, we have started a rezoning process for our waterfront. It's an exciting time. We've had kickoff meetings to both of those. We're in the process right now of meeting with interested groups and stakeholders in the downtown neighborhoods and along the waterfront about both of those issues. We need the state to remove the DPA so that we can rezone and take better advantage of our waterfront. Anybody who has a question about it, anybody who wants to get involved, please call my office. Please get involved, because this is a community resource that we want to begin to better utilize for decades to come going forward.
And my control room has just told me we just have a couple minutes left. Any final comments, Mike, before we close the show today?
It's summertime. There's lots happening. This is one of the best times of year to live and spend time in Beverly. Main Street sponsored their first block party last Saturday. It was a great success. It's great fun. There's another one August 2nd, I believe, Saturday night, August 2nd. They're from 5 to 9 or 5:30 to 9:30. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then there's another one in early October, which will theme as an Oktoberfest. The Grand Prix bike race is in about 12 days on Wednesday, July 30th. I met with the promoters this morning, the organizers, about making sure that the safety for spectators and safety for bikers is all it needs to be. It should be a very exciting and fun event. And that really helps to kind of move us into homecoming week, which is August 1st through the 10th. We also have, throughout the summer, we have the Thursday night concerts on the Common. Main Streets is now doing Friday night concerts in Ellis Square. We have the Lynch Park Sunday evening concerts. There's so much to do.
So much to do.
We live in an incredible part of the world, and this is one of the best times of year to enjoy it. So I hope people are enjoying their summers. Please come on out and take part in these community activities and events. And as always, call my office with anything. Well, suggestions, concerns, complaints, words of encouragement, anything. It's all welcomed.
Yeah. Well, Mike, thank you for reminding our viewers for the rich array of activities and resources that the city has to offer its citizens.
Thanks, Walt.
And I'd like to remind our viewers out there, you've been watching City Scene with Mayor Mike Cahill. I'm your host, Walt Kosmowski, and we'll see you next time.